Don't worship idols. Well, that's pretty easy, right? Hey guys, it's me again, Douglas, and today I want to talk to you about idolatry. I want to talk to you about worshiping idols. Now, this is an interesting subject because in the Old Testament and in the New Testament, this idol worship was, well, it was pretty straightforward. There were people who would carve these little statues, or sometimes big statues, and they would worship those statues as if they were a god. And this happened in the Old Testament and happened in the New Testament. There's a big deal in both. In the Old Testament, the Israelites kept worshiping idols. They kept adding idols to their worship. A lot of times they wouldn't be like, okay, I'm not going to worship God anymore. I'm going to worship these idols. They would just say, I'm going to worship God and I'm going to worship these idols. And they would kind of like act like they were the same thing. And in the New Testament, like the Greeks and the Romans, they had idols that they would worship. Sometimes they had big giant statues that they would worship. Sometimes they would have little statues that they would have in their house and they would worship those. And they believed that these false gods would hear them when they prayed to these little idols. But there's only one God. There might be millions of, little g gods, like false gods, but there's only one true God. And we are not to worship idols. We're not supposed to worship false gods. We should not pray to, we should not venerate, we should not worship things that we made or even things that we found. And we shouldn't worship or pray to other people. Idol worship for many of us is not as straightforward as it used to be. There are still some people where it's like in their culture, it's very common to have like a picture of a loved one who has died, and you pray to that picture. And in other places, they might have, a little statue of something, any kind of God. Maybe it's a little fat guy, and you rub his belly, and you say, oh, that gives me good luck because this little God will help me out. Well, praying to a picture or praying to a statue, that is absolutely, it's idol worship. That's like a created thing. Don't worship that thing. That's pretty straightforward. Don't worship idols. But here's where it gets tricky. Because an idol isn't just a thing, right? It's not just like a statue or a picture or something like that. An idol is anything that we put before God, or even as equal to God. If something is as important to you or even more important to you than God, that's an idol. And I think we do that all the time. And we do it with all sorts of things. Sometimes we do it with like people. Maybe someone who's like a friend or a family member. We can idolize them, or sometimes a stranger. Be like, oh, that's a celebrity. That's an incredible person. I'm going to follow them. And we end up almost like worshiping them. And it'd be like, oh, well, God says that this thing is true, but this celebrity says this other thing is true. I'm not really sure which one to believe. Well, if you're not sure which one to believe, then you've made an idol of this celebrity or whoever. If you are unhappy or feeling unfulfilled in your life, and so you think, I'm going to go get some more money, and that will make me happy or fulfilled, then you've made money your idol. If you're only happy when you're playing video games or, getting likes on social media, then you've made video games or social media your idol. If you're only comforted by food, you've made food your idol. And the list goes on and on and on and on. We can take just about anything and turn it into an idol. We can take just about anything and put it in the place of God. Now listen, stuff like food, video games, social media, even like, the pursuit of wealth is not necessarily a bad thing. But if we take anything and put it before God, it's going to end badly. And when I say not to worship food and not to worship video games and that sort of thing, I'm not like saying you're happy when you play video games, you should stop playing video games. It's bad for that to make you happy. No, I think video games are often fine, and it's totally fine to, have fun, so long as you're not doing it in an ungodly way. Same with food. I think it's totally fine to enjoy food. And though the love of money and the worship of money can lead to all sorts of evil, it's not that money itself is evil. But if you're finding fulfillment in these things and not in God, it's not just like shame on you, but poor you, like pitiable you. The fulfillment that God can give us is so much more than any money ever could. The joy that comes from Jesus Christ is more than any video game or any social media platform could ever offer. The comfort that God can offer us is more than any food ever could. The love that God has for us is better than any love we can find from anyone in the world. And one of the things that kind of worries me is that sometimes people will be like, if you would rather play sports than go to church, then sports are your idol. Or if you would rather, watch a movie than go to church, then you've made movies your idol. Listen, it's not about church. It's about God. You can make church your idol. The Pharisees, they did not have little statues that they worshiped in their homes, but they did idolize the law, and they idolized the temple, and they idolized the things in the temple. They idolized themselves. And if we're not careful, we can do the same thing, even with, churchy, Christian-y kind of things. So my challenge to you guys today is that you would put nothing on the same level in your heart as God, and certainly nothing above God. Yeah, definitely don't pray to statues. Don't pray to anything or anyone but God. And if you're looking for truth, look to God for that truth. If you're looking for comfort, look to God for that comfort. If you're looking for fulfillment, look to God for that fulfillment. He is the only God, and only He can give us what we really need. So let's worship Him and recognize that He is above everything. Don't worship idols. Hey guys, I hope you liked this video. And yeah, do you ever catch yourself sort of almost worshiping something or someone? I always think it's interesting with celebrities, how similar celebrities seem to be to ancient false god pantheons. We look at these people who are in movies and are like, wow, they're something, something beyond human. They are bigger and better. They're just people. They might have more money than us or have fancier clothes or, be better at acting, but they're still just people. There is nothing and no one who can come anywhere close to who God is and what God is. Let's not idolize people. Let's not idolize things. Let's worship God and not worship idols.